At the end of every unit, your teacher has a chance. Teach a lesson by the lessons and their constituent hands. But what do you suppose our teacher has to do? It's just a lesson that makes us present a digital LEQ. Elocution needs historical evidence, reasoning that can corroborate in advance. Accomplice ceases that. Dr. JP has put on mind. Then we drop the screencast like a single that is fired. Student create screencast for you, like, subscribe, and share. We know you had all the John Green and see how many you can bear. If we had the most views by 10 piece on the fifth day, we earned 500 bonus points, which virtually gets us an A. Without much more, much more. Fan for ado, we present our digital LEQ.
Economic changes that industrialization brought to Asia by Akira Douglas, Ermias Snake, Jonathan Gerardo, Jashane Russell, and Mark Isorena. Thesis: in the period through 1950 to 1900 in which countries in Europe, North America, and Asia underwent industrialization, the economies of each region changed and developed differently. As Asia had different values and priorities than other regions, they developed in ways which can be seen in their economic growth. The most prominent changes include economic systems, economic policy, and social organizations. Historical context. Industrialization was a global change in standards of living, manufacturing in the period of 1700 to 1800. The change began in Europe and spread globally, as many social and economic changes occurred in this period. Migration was a large trend during this period, and economic life of all people changed during this time. Economic systems. Economic systems in Asia before industrialization. Before the Industrial Revolution occurred, all economies in Asia were traditional economies, most of them developed through religious and political views. These economies had to change their systems in order to allow industrialization to fully take root and develop the country and its overall economy. Traditional economy is an economic system in which traditions, customs, and beliefs help shape the goods and services of economic produces, as well as the rules and manner of their distribution. A great example of this would be Afghanistan, which has always had a traditional economy based on agriculture and herding. Economic systems in Asia after industrialization. After the Industrial Revolution, all of the economies in Asia were mixed economies, meaning that only one system, not meaning that none were only one economic systems meaning that none were only one system of economy, but insisted two or more systems combined. The best example is India, which is neither completely socialist or capitalist, and both the private and public sectors operate in the market. Economic systems in Asia, similarities and differences with other regions. There are many similarities with Asian countries share with There are many similarities that Asian countries share with countries of other regions. One of the main similarities is that nearly all economies around the world are mixed economies today. This is a trend found not only in Asia, but also in other regions around the world. The main difference between Asian countries and the countries of other regions around the world is that Asia houses the most communist economies in the most primary sector, mining and agriculture, driven economies. The only exception is Cuba, which has a communist economy, and many developing countries which are driven by the primary sector. Economic policy. Economic policy changes in Asia trade. In order to undergo industrialization, countries like China opened its doors and ports to welcome trade. They did so not only for the economic benefits, but also for the experienced military growth in order to be able to fight against regions which had already industrialized, who looked to take advantage of them. The best example of this is when Commodore Perry of the industrialized US attempt to force Japan into trade by showing off their military strength in 1853 to 54. This pushed Japan to start industrialization as to not be forced into toxic one-sided trade. Economic policy changes in Asia development. As new technologies were developed to introduce and introduce As new technologies were developed and introduced to Asia, the countries developed in many different ways. These developments include the innovation of existing technologies and the beginning of the manufacturing and agricultural kingdom that exists in Asia today. The new technologies introduced to Asia include amazing inventions such as the steam engine, which changed the process of manufacturing and mining in Asia forever. Economic policy changes in Asia, similarities and differences with other regions. The economic policy changes in Asia were similar to other regions in the type of policies they put into place. These include trade, development, and security policies. However, the economic policy changes in Asia were very different from the policy changes in other regions due to the main difference. Other regions were mostly focused on strengthening and making money, while Asian countries were also focused on preserving their lifestyles and values. The difference created policies which welcome trade. This difference created policies which welcome trade, but also limited it. This was not a result of Asian leaders trying to protect their people from being converted by lifestyles and values of other regions. Social changes. Social changes in Asia during industrialization migration. Industrialization was a shift from rural to urban society. As people shifted from village life to living in towns where factories were established, this change in the demography and environment of Asia, as more and more areas became urbanized and pollution gradually increased due to factories and overcrowding in urban areas. Family structure were also changed greatly as extended family had stayed in the same area pre-industrialization, but was very widespread post-industrialization. This destroyed family bonds and extended family became more and more alienated from one another. Social changes in Asia, industrialization, men and women. The role of women also changed the family as they were also expected to work as well as take care of the children at home. This shift led to Asian women having more power in their families as they gained stronger as they gained a stronger and more important role in the home. The role of men changed alongside the women due to many countries trying to strengthen their militaries in order to combat Western industrialization. Although scholars remained a dignified and respected class warriors, Although scholars remained a dignified and respected class, warriors also gained more respect and wages as the side of the militaries grew. Social changes in Asia during industrialization, similarities and differences with other regions. The most important similarity between Asian countries and other regions is the shift from agrarian society, villages, to city life in search of factory jobs. The most important difference between Asia and other regions is religious conversion. The Western countries were already primarily Christian. Asian countries were converted, although this conversion was not welcomed by all Asian leaders. Also, Britain's introduction of opium in Asia greatly affected the social lifestyles of the people. Economic change in Asia point of view. Source 1. This passage is from the Journal of Central Asian Society. It was a speech given to the Royal Central Asian Society by the Englishman G. E. Hubbard, who had stayed briefly in China. The speech was given in the perspective of a European man who experienced the industrialization China underwent. He compared their industrialization to that of many European and other Western countries. This allowed for listeners to gain an understanding regarding the differences in the industrialization brought to China compared to other countries. This is source 1 expanded. Economic changes in Asia point of view source 2. This image demonstrates how the Japanese perceive the American militia when they forced Japanese to open their gates and ports for trade. The ship is the image The ship in the image is a picture of Commodore Matthew Perry's ship when he forced Japan to open their ports. It was not only Japan that was forced to trade with industrialized Western powers. China also had similar experiences. This age, this changed Asia's perspective of Western owers, as they showed how industrialization had strengthened them and pushed them into industrialize as well. Source 2 expanded. Economic changes in Asia point of view. Source 3. This passage is an excerpt from the Mejia Constitution of 1889, which was how the Japanese government responded to industrialization. It encouraged westernization of Japan's government, economy, and military. The Mejia Constitution established the constitutional monarchy, built factories, and opened the military to all men. The Mejia Constitution came to be because Japan's leaders sought to create a constitution that would define Japan as capable, modern nation deserving of Western respect while preserving their own power. Source 3 expanded. Theme analysis. Theme 1 Humans and the Environment. Industrialization brought about an excessive amount of pollution and migration in Asia and other regions. As factories and overcrowding polluted regions, urbanization as people migrated changed the environment as well. Theme 2 Cultural Developments and Interactions. Trade and migration brought intercultural relations to a whole new level. As populations intertwined through war, marriage, religious conversions, and more cultural developed interacted in a whole new way. Theme 3 Governance. Industrialization changed many policies pertaining to trade, economy, and social policies. All of these played a large role in the governance of a country and its politics. Theme 4 Economic Systems. One of the most important changes that industrialization brought about, the trade, goods, and services exchange created by Asian countries changed and developed to the manufacturing kingdom that it is today. Theme 5 Social Interactions and Organization. The role of women, men, and children all changed during industrialization. The strict social classes in Asia also changed greatly, as soldiers were sought out in order to combat the military strength of industrialized Western powers. Theme 6 Technology and Innovation. The technological changes industrialization brought to Asia and all other regions are undebatable. However, the innovations in Asia increased the most as they had the most impressive technology pre industrialization. Big ideas. Conclusion. Number 1. How was the industrialization of Asia different from European countries? Asia industrialized under the belief that they would be able to do so while still preserving their own traditions and values. How did industrialization affect Asia? Industrialization changed the economic system of almost all Asian countries and also affected imports and trade. How did other countries undergoing industrialization affect Asia? Other countries grew stronger after industrialization and used their newfound might to force Asia into trade agreements and industrialization as well. Thank you and have a good day.